Let's finish up chapter 3 by looking at the positions that exist on the exchange, and then we'll look at changes that have happened in the market, in the markets, and we'll be done with chapter 3. So some of the positions that are out there on the exchange: commission brokers. These are folks that work on the exchange. Okay, they are employees of the broker-dealers. They're not employees of the exchange. They work for the broker-dealers. And they do transactions for broker-dealer customers on the floor of the exchange. Then you have floor brokers, and these are independent members of the exchange. Okay, they are not employed by brokerage firms, and they help commission brokers with overflow. Okay, so if a brokerage firm is inundated with buy or sell orders for a certain number of stocks, certain types of stocks, then the floor brokers will come and help the commission brokers. Then we have registered traders, and these are also independent members of the exchange, only they don't trade for someone else. They trade for their own accounts. Okay, they're speculators. Okay. Then we have the specialists. Okay, they are now called the designated market makers. So the term specialist has been changed. And these are exchange members, so they work for the exchange, okay? And they conduct the auction for stocks that are assigned to them. So when you turn on the TV and you're looking at CNBC, and they're on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and you see these round desks with TV screens or computer screens up top, and you see people at these round desks, you're looking at the specialists. This is where these people go to their post, and they're assigned there to trade in stocks that are assigned to them by the exchange. And each post typically handles about 15 stocks. So if you're a commission broker or a floor broker, you know where to go to buy and sell certain stocks. Okay? To be a specialist, you have to supply your own capital, and you need $1 million in capital, or enough to own 15,000 shares of each stock that is assigned to you. So you bring your own capital to the table, and the specialists perform 3 critical functions. 1, they match buy and sell orders. Okay? So they keep a book and they match buy and sell orders. They keep the limit order book. So when a customer calls the broker and says, put in this limit order, the broker will call their commission brokers. Their commission brokers will go to the specialist, and the specialist will be given that limit order. Okay? They also must provide an orderly market, and what this means is they buy and sell into the market. So they'll sell inside the spread in order to close the spread. If the spread between the bid and ask gets too wide, then the specialist will trade out of his own or her own account in order to close the spread. Okay? So he or she must work against the market if it becomes necessary. So this means that if a stock price is declining, they will buy in order to slow the decline down. If a stock price is rising, they will sell in order to slow the price increase down. Okay? Specialists make money by charging commissions, and they make money on their inventory. If their inventory goes up in value, they make money. If their inventory goes down in value, they lose money. Okay? Because they have the limit order book, they know what the short-term supply and demand is for stocks. And so they can buy and sell for their own accounts based on where they see the stock price going. And in study after study, it shows that the only function or position in the entire marketplace that consistently earns a superior rate of return is the specialist or the designated market maker. All right, I must tell you that in the last 4 years, the role of all of the positions on the New York Stock Exchange has been drastically diminished. Okay? More than 80%, it's closer to 85% of trading is now accomplished electronically and automatically. There is a warehouse in Newark, New Jersey, which is across the river, not sure which river, probably the Hudson, from New York City. It's a big warehouse, it's a server warehouse, and that's where the orders are matched up, okay? When the market becomes volatile, instead of the specialist slowing it down, there are now electronic systems called circuit breakers that are supposed to slow down trading and calm the market as opposed to a specialist. For example, in 2013, the circuit breakers were triggered by declines of 7%, 13%, and 20%. The 7% breaker closed the market for 15 minutes. So if a stock declined 7%, trading in that stock would stop for 15 minutes. And then a 20% decline caused another stoppage, and a 20% decline stopped trading in that stock or in the market, if it was for the overall market, for the entire day, the rest of the day. So there are circuit breakers for indexes and for individual stocks. So that is a technique which is meant to make the market more orderly. All right, let's look at changes in the marketplace. The first is institutionalization. This has been going on for about 50 or 60 years now. In the 60s, institutions began to dominate the markets. In the 70s and in part of the 80s, these institutions were pension plans, banks, and insurance companies. They were the institutions that began to dominate the market. They're still important, okay? They're still important institutions, but they're newer institutions that have come onto the scene. Today, we have mutual funds, or investment companies, hedge funds, and foreign government funds that dominate the market. So these are the kinds of institutions we have that trade in the markets today. We still have pension plans, banks, insurance companies. We also have mutual funds, hedge funds, and what we call sovereign funds, which are foreign government funds that are trying to make a profit in the markets, and they really dominate the trading in the marketplace. Some effects on the markets from these institutions: block trading. What is a block trade? It's a trade that involves 10,000 shares or more of a stock. Most small investors are buying in lots of 50 and 100 shares, but institutions buy in lots of 10,000 shares, or a trade that's worth more than $200,000. And I do a lot of block trading for my institutional clients. In 1965, there were 9 block trades done each day on average. In the last 5 years, block trades have increased from 10% of total trading volume to 25%. So you can see that the amount of institutional trades has skyrocketed. Okay? Exchanges, broker-dealers, specialists, and market makers are not well suited to do block trades. Why? Because they don't have the capital to do block trades. You can't ask a specialist to do a block trade that involves $5 or $10 million worth of stock. They can't handle that. And so they don't have the contacts to match buyers and sellers, because specialists are prohibited from dealing with non-brokers. They have to deal with brokers. All right, so these trading houses called block houses were formed to conduct these trades. These block houses specialize in block trades, okay? So another big change in the market happened way back in 1975. Prior to May 1st, 1975, we call it May Day, the New York Stock Exchange had a mandatory commission schedule. Every member of the exchange who did trades on behalf of clients had to charge a minimum commission, okay? And this worked really well until block trades became popular, and the institutions were not going to pay these high commissions, okay? The large traders wanted lower transaction costs. For example, most small trades that involve 4,000 to 25,000 averaged 1.25% to 2.25% of the value of the trade. Well, an institution that does a $5 million trade doesn't want to pay the same as a retail client that buys 100 shares of a stock, okay? So traders started going to the third market and the fourth market, okay? And so the New York Stock Exchange saw these traders leaving the exchange to trade away from the exchange, and so they eliminated their minimum commission rules. Okay? So today, each brokerage firm has their own commission schedule, and they say you negotiate with clients. You kind of do, but you kind of don't. The commission really depends on how much money the client has at the brokerage firm. The more money you have at a brokerage firm, the lower you pay for your trades. The more trades you do, the lower you pay for each trade. So most block trades are done for between 1 cent and 5 cents per share, okay? And that's regardless of the price of stock. So it used to be a commission was based on the percentage of the value of the trade. Now it's based on the number of shares you trade, okay? As a result of eliminating the discount, eliminating the minimum brokerage commission schedule, the retail discount brokerage firm was created. And so the first one was Charles Schwab. Okay? Before the elimination of this rule, all brokerage firms charged high fees, and they only provided full service. Okay? Today, firms can unbundle their services, and so they can offer execution only, trades only, no advice at one price, and full service with trust and with research and advice, financial planning advice for higher commissions. Okay? Next, we have the tiered market, which is the market really consists of different pieces. Think about it this way. Institutions that do large trades need liquidity, okay? And so they avoid small company stocks. It's just not practical for an institution that has several billion under management to buy and sell small company stocks, because their large orders will affect the stock's price. If they buy, the stock's price goes up. If they sell, the stock price goes down. Okay? There's not enough liquidity out there. And this happens with a lot of firms, particularly mutual funds that specialize in small company stocks. They have to limit the amount of money that they take in, because if they grow too large, if they're handling too much money, they cannot buy illiquid stocks. And most small company stocks are not as liquid as large company stocks. And plus, you don't want to end up, as an investment company, you don't want to end up owning 10, 15, 20% of a company. Okay? That makes you an active investor, active in management, and you really don't want to be in that position. Okay? All right, so the point I want to make is that the market is divided into pieces primarily based on liquidity. And there's certain areas that certain investors can go into and prefer, and there's certain areas of the market where investors cannot venture in. All right, lastly, trends in the marketplace. With the growing use of electronics, you know that's permeating every aspect of society. Okay? You can buy and sell off your phone now. Okay? Also, in order processing, brokerage firms have employed technology to speed up all of their processing, minimize human error. Okay? Globalization and consolidation. As I mentioned, there used to be 20 regional exchanges, only one now. There used to be probably 100 regional and local brokerage firms around the country. Now there might be 20. There were probably, let me take that back. There were probably, if you look at regional and local, there were probably on the order of 200 brokerage firms around the country, maybe even a few more. And now there are probably 20. Okay, consolidation. When you look at what NASDAQ, ICE, and OTC Group, Market Group has done, they've really consolidated. The industry is consolidated. When you look at the fact that after 2009, the investment firms, the brokerage firms merged with the money center banks. Bank of America bought Merrill Lynch. Lots of these transactions happened. Wells Fargo bought a firm. I think the independent big brokerage firm that I can think of right now that's out there is Morgan Stanley. I think UBS is an international firm. Morgan Stanley, I think, may be the last large U.S. brokerage firm. Okay, and then there's Schwab, which is a discount firm. All right, a continuing proliferation of new products out there. Okay, things like credit default swaps, exchange traded funds, hedge funds, derivatives, private equity. All these things are constantly being tweaked and developed. New participants in the markets. Okay, and so you have some firms that sell everything. A lot of consolidation. That sell insurance, have loans, brokerage, and so we call them financial supermarkets. And then you have boutiques that spring up that just do one thing. Okay, they specialize in one particular activity. So you got to keep up with the new products and the new players in the market. Then new regulators, new bodies like FINRA that come into being, and new regulations that happen, like new regulations in banking and in brokerage that happened after 2009. Okay, so these things happen all the time. Challenges in the market, new products are being developed. It's difficult for investors and for regulators to understand these new products, to keep up with the complexities and the potential consequences of these products. Let me tell you something. Back in 2007, 2008, we professionals in the investment business knew something was wrong, but we just couldn't put our finger on it. We just couldn't identify what it was. It was the new products that had come along. We had no idea, we had no way to measure it, and we did not know how much risk was out there. It turned out to be a lot of risk. A few examples include mortgage-backed bonds. These bonds are backed by loans. Private equity funds that don't have to disclose what they're doing. Hedge funds, credit default swaps. These things all led to the financial crisis of 2009. Okay? Beware of financial institutions that lobby, and they all lobby. Okay? The financial industry is one of the largest and one of the wealthiest industries in the world. I heard Paul Feinbaum, who reports on SEC football, and he was talking about the fact that over the next 5 years, Nick Saban will make $75 million. Okay? And some of the sportscasters were questioning that, and he said, let me tell you something. If Nick Saban were on Wall Street, he would not make 75 over 5 years. He would make $75 million every year for 5 years. So he said, stop complaining about it. He's the best at what he does. People pay a lot of money for tickets. They give a lot of money to the university. A lot of people watch Alabama football on television. That all translates into huge revenue for Alabama and for the SEC. He said, stop complaining. His point was, these folks on Wall Street make a lot of money. All right. The industry contributes significant amounts to the campaigns of U.S. politicians. This is one thing in America that stinks, that needs to be changed. It's the amount of money that is in our political system. This gives the industry tremendous influence over laws and regulations that affect their industry. Okay? I was a lobbyist for 2 years. I know how it works. Every industry has their lobbyists, and their lobbyists contact these politicians, and they do whatever they can do to either prevent regulations that will harm them or to promote regulations that will help them. Okay? The best and the brightest people stay in the private sector because the compensation in the private sector is much higher than compensation in the public sector. Okay? So I'm sorry to say this, but this is generally true. The smarter people stay in the private sector, and that leaves the less smart people to do the politics and the regulations. Okay? Politicians have a hard time opposing wealthy individuals because wealthy individuals contribute money to their campaigns and influence them. And you know that if you're a politician and you make someone who's very wealthy angry, that person is going to pull their financial support from your campaign and give it to your opponent. Okay? So I just beware of lobbying that's done by financial services firms. All right, we're done with chapter 3. We'll move on to chapter 4. Until then, I bid you shalom, peace out.